Hey guys, Kyle the Death Knight of Anime here, bringing you my review for the Promised Neverland Episode 3 review. Okay, so first off, there is kind of an elephant in the room that needs to be addressed, which is that the last episode, it pretty much, the ending of the last episode, it pretty much kind of jumped ahead a bit and adapted the last few pages of chapters 5, so knowing that, there's a little bit of worry I had going into this episode as to whether or not they would even go back and adapt chapter 5, which thankfully they did, and actually that and honestly, this is kind of and actually to be honest with you, they pretty much adapted a lot of material in this one episode, which in a way it makes me realize that the Promised Neverland is almost doing is kind of doing almost what pretty much pretty much it was Studio Pierrot was almost trying to do with Tokyo Ghoul, but ended up completely failing miserably, which is that Cloverworks Animation is taking all these episodes and they're adapting it in all these episodes, adapting them into a single chapter, and they're surprisingly and they're making it quite actually honestly quite a lot more cohesive. A lot more. I'm not gonna say as cohesive as the manga, but they are making a very cohesive product despite taking all these chapters and cramming them into one episode, which I know that's one thing that is always possible to do, but yeah, Cloverworks is just making it work somehow for basically for a series that is so heavily dependent on exposition and whatnot. I'm surprised how much they're getting away with it. Having, but like I said, they managed to adapt chapter 5 only to, but I will admit that there is one little. They definitely adapted chapter 5 and a whole bunch of other chapters, very very well. But there is one thing to note, which is that, see, the thing is the episode kept a lot of stuff intact, but there were a couple of minor things that were left out, which makes me believe they are using the Bloom into You pretty much the whole method that Bloom into You was using in order to adapt its material, which that they're trimming the fat, but they're keeping everything else. Now, the biggest problem the biggest problem I have with the anime using this method, however, is again something I mentioned before, but they are cutting out a lot of the cool imagery, but I think that's one advantage we should kind of expect that the manga to have over the anime from here on out, which is that the manga has a greater emphasis on the imagery of the series, whereas the anime, it gives us the bare bones of it. And the other big problem I'm kind of worried that Promised Neverland is probably going to eventually run into with this kind of thing, is that in the anime's effort to pretty much trim the fat, so to speak, I'm worried that with the Promised Neverland, there might come a time where something that the studio sees as fat to be trimmed might actually be a bit of a small important detail. But yeah, I guess we can just, all you have to do is wait and see where it goes from here. Um, Now, the bigger issue for me another big issue for me personally is that as a manga reader, there's kind of a curse I have, which in the case of this episode, because I'll give Cloverworks credit for attempting to capture the same amount of creepiness in Sister Crone's expressions, and that there were a couple times where it worked, but ultimately, I have to be honest, and the anime, it definitely fell short. It definitely fell short, and it definitely fell short in just capturing just how creepy of a character that Sister Crone is, and I think that's because the studio is, I don't want to say cheaping out, but it does feel like Cloverworks is kind of holding back from getting really detailed with just how terrifying a character like Sister Crone actually is. Although, like I said, to be fair on the anime's part, there were one or two moments that felt a little bit creepy, but there were few and far between moments with Sister Crone that actually felt like I was, well, like I was legitimately, that legitimately pretty much brought back the exact same feelings I had when I read the manga. Let's put it that way. Um, one thing I will say that I absolutely despise, it was kind of one of those things that was so bad it was good about this particular part of the anime. And one thing that really boggled me, like in a so bad it's kind of hilarious way, is like and legit had me going, what the fuck is going on? Is the choice in background music that the anime used when Sister Krone was chasing the kids. Because I was hearing the yakety sax music in my head during that whole sequence. And when I'm laughing, when it's a situation where I'm laughing a lot more than feeling any kind of dread or terrifying thoughts for these kids, that's not a good sign. In fact, I'll be honest, it wasn't until the music actually stopped playing that I actually started taking the situation seriously, which was from which was unfortunately basically it wasn't until it was near the end of the episode where the music stopped playing. So yeah, it was until the episode was almost over that I started taking the whole situation seriously. Actually, I will be honest. When the music did stop playing, it was actually around those latter parts too where I started taking Sister Krone a lot more seriously and a lot more. I did feel a lot more of a creepy sense kind of creeping up on me too. Especially when she was doing a little bit of that psycho of that analysis of our three main characters. But okay, so I've gone over too much. Okay, so I've probably taken too much time going over the technicals of the stuff. But the episode, but now let's kind of talk about the episode as a whole, but the episode as a whole, honestly, is still very well done, and I feel an episode like this really enforces as to why this series is so good because it takes its time in actually building up in actually pretty much building things up and doing thing and telling the story in a very intricate way where it's building up to the where it builds up to the eventual escape by giving us a new obstacle that the characters have to overcome even before they can execute the actual plan. And the even greater thing about these obstacles is that it reminds us that the main characters are still children. So, and because of that fact that they are children, there are times where they need to use any and all strengths that they have as children at their disposal. And in this instance, I especially like how something as simple as a kid's game of tag was used as a training exercise because it puts emphasis on outsmarting the enemy over using brute force. Because, like I said, and it grounds it in a way where we're reminded that the enemies that the kids are dealing with are adults on the inside in Gracefield and demons on the outside when they're finally going to escape. So, and both of which are. And it reminds us that both the demons and the adults in this scenario are much faster and stronger than the prince they are. So, yeah, it was a very nice way it was a simple way of portraying a pretty much a very important message almost. and and yeah, I'm honest. And yeah, I'm really interested to see I'm really interested to see exactly how much more build up we're gonna get because like I said, I think one thing that we're gonna have to keep in the back of our minds too is and keep remembering in ourselves is that these are kids, so and they're not gonna be like they're not gonna be like the Saiyans or they're not gonna be like the Saiyans or the freaking or the pirates of One Piece. They don't have devil fruits. They're not anything like that. They're just kids, and they're trying to, and they need to overcome a certain obstacle, and they need to use what strengths they have as kids in order to come obstacles. So, yeah, I just love that part. Um, so the ending gives us the big reveal that Sister Krone and Isabella are possibly manipulating one of the kids to give them information on Ray, Norman, and Emma's movements. And I use that term manipulate because the anime is kind of making it is making it a lot more obvious than the manga that one of the younger kids is unknowingly giving information. Like, I'm sorry, I can't believe that any of these kids are willingly basically tossing them are willingly pretty much are giving up information to pretty much Isabella and Isabella and Krone. Like, I think Isabella is almost manipulating one of the kids in a way where it's like, you can, if you give me information, I'll give you this, or if you I'm sure she's using it in a very they're doing it in a very motherly way almost. I think is what they're doing. Like they're treating the kids like their children, and they're using that as a means to manipulate them. But yeah, like I don't remember to my knowledge. I think with this particular situation where the kids are being manipulated, where the kids are being manipulated. I think the manga kept it a little more like they basically said that kids are being manipulated, but the manga I think kept it a little more ambiguous of basically who might it be. But I think they're kind of giving us a I think they're kind of giving it a little more substance of who might be doing it almost. Um, and and this is and I think this is for me where I feel that the game of chess with these characters is really starting to come into play as each move that Emma, Ray, and Norman make is being countered by Isabella. And I will say that I think you need to keep in terms of who's been ratting them out. I will say it's best if you kind of keep your mind open as to which kid it actually is for sure, because it might be. Let me just say this. It might be one of the young kids, but it might not. Who knows other than me, right? But yeah. Now we pretty much now another thing we also get to see is a little bit more of the demons in this episode, and there is actually a bit of a grammatical change with that whole scene, which is that basically the scene is essentially the same. We definitely get a little bit of exposition where we learn that the children in Gracefield and other prime human farms are being harvested in order for the meal in order for the demon's leader, which is simply known as him, and something called the Tif Ari ceremony, which yeah definitely a lot of good setup there and a little hint of world building too. But going back to what I said in the anime, the demons call their leader him, which yeah, it kind of gives me a little Powerpuff Girl flashbacks. I'm not gonna lie, but in the manga, his name is pronounced in a bit of the demon's own dialect. So which is kind of hard. Which it's a dialect which doesn't have like words in which we can understand. So it's an understandable change because I don't know how you translate any of the kind of demonic language into the anime, but it left me curious of how the anime I suppose could have possibly adapted that particular part of their of their leader's name almost. But yeah. So yeah guys, that's all I got for this review. If you enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe, follow me on Twitter, Facebook, any list of Crunchyroll. Death Night of Anime, signing off. Later guys.